Okay, in this video, we're going to be looking at order of operations and evaluating expressions with integers. So we're throwing some negatives in with what we've already learned how to do. All right, this first problem, you can see I've got a division problem. Remember, this division bar is a grouping symbol. So when we're looking at our order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, we're going to have to separate this problem into the top part and then in the bottom part, and then wait to the end to simplify my answer. So looking at the numerator here, I have -4 times -3. That's going to be a positive 12. And in the denominator, I have 8 minus -1. Remember, minus and negative is the same thing as adding the opposite. So 8 and 1 is 9, and then you have 12 ninths, which can simplify to 4/3. Okay, problem 2. Notice that I have multiplication here with the -4 times -1, and then I also have multiplication with 3 times -1. So I'm going to do those multiplications first and then add. Remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally says you have to multiply before you add. So -4 times -1 is going to give me +4. Then this plus sign I'm going to bring on over. 3 times -2 is -6. And then in the denominator, I have 5 minus -1. Remember, minus a negative is the same thing as adding a positive. 5 and 1 is 6. So now I can simplify my numerator. 4 and -6 is -2. So I have -2 over 6, and that will simplify to -1/3. One quick thing here about the negatives in MyMathLab, you can put this answer in MyMathLab with a negative out front, or you could put the negative with the numerator, but you cannot put the negative with the denominator. Okay, so let me give you a minute to try problem 3 and 4 on your own. So pause the video, do those, and then come back and check your answers. And there are your answers for problems 3 and 4. And just as a quick reminder, if there's anything you see in the videos that you don't quite understand, please feel free to send me an email and I will help you with that. Okay, problem 5. Notice that I have multiplication here in the middle, and that's what I have to do first. Remember, the order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, says I have to multiply before I add and subtract. So the 15 and the subtraction sign come straight down. 4 times 5 is 20, and then plus 3. And remember that once you have addition and subtraction, you have to do that from left to right. So I have 15 minus 20, which is -5, and then -5 plus 3 is going to give me -2. On problem 6, I'm going to do this one just a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and bring down this 20, but I'm going to think of this middle part as -2 times -3. And -2 times -3 is going to give me a +6. So this is going to be +6 and then +5. Now, if you wanted to do this differently, you can. If you wanted to think of this as just a subtraction and then 2 times -3, you can do it that way. So you would have 20 minus -6 and then +5. But remember, a minus a negative is the same thing as plus a positive. So this is going to give you 26 plus 5. And then when you add those together, you get 31. So either way you want to do the problem is fine. So let me give you a minute to pause the video, try problem 7 and 8 on your own, and then come back and check your answers. And there are your answers for problems 7 and 8. Okay, with these next two problems, we're going to be evaluating the expression. So we're told over here toward the right of the problem what x and y and z are. We're going to substitute these numbers into my expression. So for problem number 9, I'm going to have 5 times 2 minus 2 times -3 plus 3 times negative 1. Now, using my order of operations, I'm going to be multiplying first. So I'm going to have 10. I'm going to think of this middle part here as a negative 2 times negative 3. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6, so I'm going to write down plus 6. And then I'm going to think of this part as a positive 3 times negative 1, which is negative 3. I'm going to write down minus 3. So now I have addition and subtraction. I'm going to do that from left to right. So I have 16 minus 3, which is 13. Problem 10, substitute in my numbers. In place of the x, I'm going to put 6. And in place of the y, I'm going to put negative 2. And in place of the z, I'm going to put negative 5. I'm going to multiply. And again, in the middle part, I'm going to think of this as negative 5 times negative 2, which is a positive 10. So I'll write plus 10. And then I'm going to think of this as a positive 2 times negative 10, which is negative 10, so I'll write minus 10. Now, normally I want to do addition and subtraction from left to right, but I know that I can associate addition. So if I think of this as plus a negative 10, then I can group the plus 10 and negative 10 together, which is going to give me 0, or it's going to cancel each other out. So my answer is just positive 24. Another way to look at this is that when you add 10 and then take 10 away, you're just undoing itself. So that just sort of cancels each other out and gives you the 24. Okay, problem number 11, I'm going to substitute this 3 in place of this x. So I'm going to have negative 3 plus 7, and that answer is positive 4. Now, problem 12 looks very similar to problem 11. The only difference is that my x is negative. Now, let's go back to this part right here. Now, I say this is negative x. That's how I learned it. That's how I've always said it. Every math teacher I know says it this way. But probably a better way to say this is the opposite of x. When I substitute negative 3 in place of this x, I still have to keep that negative sign up front. So really, this means the opposite of x plus 7. So I have the opposite of negative 3 plus 7. Well, the opposite of negative 3 is positive 3, and 3 plus 7 is 10. Okay, problem 13, now we're going to have negatives and exponents. I'm going to substitute this negative 2 in place of this x. And remember that when this x is being squared, this means that I have that base being squared. So negative 2 goes in place of x. That negative 2 needs to be in parentheses. Negative 2 squared means negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4, minus the negative, the same thing as plus a positive, so you have 4 plus 2, which is 6. On problem 14, I have a negative up front of this x squared, so I can rewrite this with that x being in parentheses and that negative sign or opposite of sign being out in front of the parentheses. So when I substitute 4 in place of x, I'm going to end up with 4 squared, which is 16, and then the opposite of that would be negative 16. So here your answer is negative 20. Be sure that you understand the difference here on when this negative is up front of that x and when that negative is being squared. This negative in problem 14 is not being squared. Okay, problem 15, I'm going to put negative 3 in place of the x. So in these first set of parentheses, I have -5 plus -3, that is -8. Second set of parentheses, 1 plus -3 is -2. And then in my last set of parentheses, minus and negative is the same thing as plus or positive, so this is going to give me +1. So -8 times -2 is 16, and 16 times 1 is just 16. Problem number 16, I'm going to substitute the -2 in place of the x. And in place of the y, I'm going to have 4. And then in the denominator here, I'm going to have 3 times 4. So your order of operations says that you're going to do this multiplication first. So you're going to have -8 plus 2 divided by 12. And that's -6 divided by 12. And that simplifies to -1/2. Okay, problem 17. I have 4 different variables here that I'm going to have to substitute for. So starting with the A, I'm going to substitute in a 4. I have that subtraction sign I need to bring down. And B is -2, so you have 4 minus -2. A common mistake is that students will see this subtraction sign and say, oh, I already have a subtraction sign, I don't need this subtraction sign. Well, yeah, you do. You have to have both because this is going to be minus and negative. And then in the denominator, you're going to have -1 minus the D, which is -3. So -1 minus -3. So again, subtraction is the same thing as adding the opposite. So in the numerator, you have 6, denominator, you have 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3.